You probably think millionaires are built with huge salaries. They're not. A lot of them started with one boring decision worth about $10,000. Not a business. Not crypto. Not a lucky break. Just one choice most people delay for years, without realizing it quietly costs them hundreds of thousands later. And the scary part? You've probably already faced this decision and didn't even notice it. Most Americans think becoming wealthy is about making more money. That's why people chase promotions, second jobs, side hustles, overtime. Meanwhile, inflation keeps rising. Rent gets worse. Groceries feel criminal. And somehow even people making six figures still feel stuck. But almost nobody notices the small financial decisions that quietly shape the next 20 years of their life. Because wealth usually doesn't explode overnight. It compounds silently. And one decision, usually around $10,000, can completely separate the person who stays stressed forever from the person who slowly becomes financially free. The real $10,000 decision is simple. Do you use your first serious savings to upgrade your lifestyle or to buy future freedom? But here's the twist. The decision itself isn't actually about money. Imagine two friends. Same age. Same city. Same salary. Both finally saved their first serious chunk of money. $10,000. For most people, that money feels emotional. Because getting there was painful. Skipped vacations. Stress at work. Cutting expenses. Living paycheck to paycheck. So what usually happens next? They reward themselves. A nicer car. Luxury apartment. Designer stuff. A dream vacation. Maybe finally living a little. And honestly, that feels reasonable. Because after years of stress, people want proof their hard work meant something. But this is where it gets dangerous. That $10,000 decision rarely changes your life immediately. It changes your habits. And habits quietly create your future. One person uses the money to upgrade their lifestyle. The other uses it to buy time. And this is where most people get trapped. Because lifestyle upgrades feel successful. But freedom usually feels boring at first. The people who quietly become wealthy often do something painfully unexciting. They use that first $10,000 to create leverage. Maybe they invest it. Eliminate high-interest debt. Build emergency savings. Learn a valuable skill. Start a small side income. Max out retirement contributions. None of that looks impressive on Instagram. But here's what happens next. When your money starts reducing pressure, your entire life changes. You stop panicking over emergencies. You stop relying on credit cards. You stop making desperate decisions because rent is due. And this is the part nobody talks about. Financial freedom usually starts psychologically before it starts financially. Because the moment you have breathing room, you think differently. You negotiate better. You leave toxic jobs faster. You take smarter risks. You stop operating from fear. That's the real return on investment. Not just more money. More control. Now here's the twist most people never see. The real problem usually isn't income. It's recovery time. Think about it. Every financial mistake costs more than money. It costs years. A bad car loan? That can delay investing for 5 years. Credit card debt? Now your future income already belongs to someone else. Lifestyle inflation? Every raise disappears before you even feel richer. And this is why some people making $70,000 quietly build wealth, while others making $200,000 still feel trapped. Because wealth is often determined by how quickly you recover from financial pressure, not how flashy your income looks. That sounds smart until you see what happens next. Because the biggest advantage millionaires have isn't intelligence. It's time. Compounding is weird. At first, it feels useless. You invest a few You still work Monday morning. Still stress about bills. Still check your bank account before buying groceries. So people quit. Because humans are emotional. We want visible rewards immediately. But compounding rewards patience in a world addicted to speed. And this is where wealthy people separate themselves. Not because they're smarter. Because they stay consistent long enough to let time work. For example, someone who invests $10,000 and keeps adding modest monthly contributions in their 30s can end up with hundreds of thousands more by retirement than someone who waits another decade. Not because they invested more money overall, but because time did the heavy lifting. And the painful part? Most people delay because they think they need a perfect moment. Higher salary. Less stress. More certainty. Better economy. That moment almost never comes. Life just keeps getting more expensive. If you're still watching, this next part changes everything. Because the $10,000 decision isn't really about investing. It's about identity. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. Most people unknowingly use money to look successful. Wealthy people often use money to become harder to control. Huge difference. One person buys status. The other buys options. Options to leave bad jobs. Options to survive emergencies. Options to take time off. Options to say no. And weirdly enough, that second person usually ends up looking wealthier later anyway. Because real wealth compounds quietly for years before anyone notices. That's why so many actual millionaires drive normal cars. Live below their means. Avoid lifestyle inflation. Not because they're cheap. Because they understand freedom is more valuable than appearances. And this is the part most people realize too late. Every dollar you permanently upgrade into lifestyle becomes a monthly bill your future self has to keep feeding. But money invested into freedom? That starts working for you instead. So no. Millionaires usually aren't created by one magical investment. They're created by small decisions repeated consistently over time. And one of the biggest is what you do with your first serious chunk of money. Because that moment reveals something deeper. Are you trying to impress people? Or reduce pressure on your future self? This week, do two simple things. First, look at one expense that keeps trapping your cash flow every month. Second, decide where your next extra $1,000 will go before you receive it. Not emotionally. Strategically. Because financial freedom rarely begins with a giant breakthrough. It usually begins with one quiet decision nobody else notices. And years later, that invisible decision changes everything.